This week has been a little different here, and I haven't quite been able to make the sort of video I would like to. But someone recently suggested I show some Danish art here, and so I thought it was a good opportunity to combine a bit of footage from a museum I went to a while back. It ties in well with the topic I wanted to share with you, because art can certainly serve as a welcome aesthetic distraction in our lives. It can do much more than that, of course, but I wanted to talk about the value of distraction when we struggle with something. A couple of small stories to demonstrate. We'll start with the banal and inconsequential. A few weeks ago I went to go cold water swimming, and shortly after I had entered the icy pool and was telling myself that I could go beyond a minute this time. A man standing at the edge of the pool began quarreling with me. He was angry that I had put my things in a small room where I've seen lots of people put their things and thought nothing of it. But he always took his things with him and apparently felt it was a battle worth picking. I was not in an ideal situation to discuss it, obviously. In very cold water, all blood flows to your heart and away from your brain, so I hardly even had the language, let alone the desire to argue with him. When he finally left and I got out of the pool, 2 more minutes had gone by, and I had broken my record. Because he had distracted me, I hadn't felt the cold of the water so much. So, a silver lining to that little altercation. My partner's father died a few days ago, not out of the blue, because he had been sick for a while and more or less already gave up the will to live after his wife died some years ago. But it was still a loss, of course, of my partner's last parent, and not least of my daughter's last grandparent. There is no word like orphan for having no grandparents, but I sensed that my daughter felt the loss as a kind of shift in her identity as well, which added to the sadness of the loss itself. So she did the only sensible thing and headed to a place called Street House here, which is where you go when you're a skater. Off to go skating with her friends, getting out of her head and into her body, for a little while at least. It doesn't mean that we kid ourselves by pretending it isn't there, whatever we're struggling with, but we give ourselves a little respite from it. Acceptance is necessary of whatever we're feeling in any given moment. But dwelling on it indefinitely or compulsively is not conducive to resolving things or in healing the feelings, rather the opposite. Distraction can be a way of alleviating the pain, not ignoring it. So a slightly more heartbreaking version of how distraction can help somebody is something that I first encountered in this novel called In Dødsnat in Danish. It means basically Night of Death or Death Night. It's based on a real story, what the author Marie Bregendahl experienced in her own life. I don't think this is translated, unfortunately, so I guess it's not going to be very spoilery. It's basically about the night during which her mother gives birth to her 10th child and she bleeds to death. And the whole day we follow this young girl. There's joy, you follow the children, but there's also a sense of, I wouldn't say impending doom, but you definitely get the sense that something is going to happen. The midwife is somewhere else and they don't manage to get help in time. And towards the end, everybody's gathered in the room where the mother is lying, and she's just given birth to her 10th child, who survives. The girl who grows up to be the woman who wrote this book, she and her older sister are standing there looking at their mother in deep despair. And the narrator then tells us how the older sister she just fell apart after that. But this woman, Marie, she was about 10 years old, and at one point one of her younger siblings drops a ball, and the ball rolls under some piece of furniture, and Marie follows it with her eyes. And there's something in that, some ant who's also in the room, notices Marie's gaze, and it's that ability to be distracted which actually ends up saving her, if you will. Everybody there is in deep despair at the death of their mother, but Marie manages to grow up and write novels. Of course, this novel, probably her best novel, is based on this heartbreak earlier in her life. But the distraction, the ability to be distracted, saved her life, more or less. There's a resilience in that. The afterword also talks about this, the ability to have both the deep sorrow in you, as well as the gaze that follows the ball. So you can have two feelings at the same time. So even if you sometimes struggle with things and you are sad or fearful or whatever, you can still have other feelings as well. And it's that ability to have two, maybe even contradictory feelings at the same time, that gives some people more resilience. Maybe it's innate, but maybe it's also something you can cultivate. I believe it is, because I've certainly been in situations where I felt that if I didn't distract myself, I would simply sort of succumb to whatever feeling I had. So that's what I would say about the value of distraction, based on a tragic story, but a meaningful story. When we invite some sort of distraction or diversion into our lives in times of struggle, we invite new things into our experience and actually form new neurological pathways. Doing new things that we enjoy also creates certain chemicals in our brain that make us feel happier, which is probably also why I've felt so happy about knitting again and improving my French. Some distractions can turn into new interests that enrich our lives in the long run as well. The distractions can be small or big, and next week we're going to distract ourselves in a slightly bigger way by going on a little trip for a few days. It will be a welcome diversion and will probably reverberate in the days afterwards. So I will see you on the other side, and in the meantime I hope you'll be able to find some small distractions of your own when and if you feel the need. Bye for now, and thank you for being here.